Welcome to the Fantasy Football Forge. My name's Steve, and today we will be going through the injury report first and follow that up with the Steel, Stock, and Scraps. Steel's going to be self-explanatory, but it is spelled S-T-E-E-L, not E-A-L. And then Stock, it sounds like, you hold or let go of your stocks. That was not the idea, but that's basically how they work anyways. And then your scraps, your scrap metal, the guys you're tossing out for the week at least. A little bit of a voice crack there. Most everybody came across this on Sunday last week, and most everybody was interested in the start-sit options. Just a heads up, if you have any specific questions, I will be live at for the most of you at some point in the near future to answer start-sit questions, so come on over there and ask me any start-sit questions that you have. You can also find all of the updated rankings, which should be updated as of some point in the earlier morning hours of Sunday, on www.theffforge.com, and you can jump to, down here in the little bar, you can jump over to the Steel Scrap Stock if you would like to, but first, we will go through a quick injury report. Allen Lazard is active. Devin Duvernay, active. Michael Pittman, active. George Kittle, active. Then we have a large list of questionable guys here. For the most part, most of them should be playing, but I know Christian Watson, for instance, is more likely to play than Randall Cobb, and KJ Hamler here is going to be more likely to play than Jerry Jeudy. J.K. Dobbins is still, of course, a big question mark. And then, for the most part, I think most of these guys are expected to play, and Keenan Allen is iffy. I assume he's listed as questionable, but what I saw was that he is iffy to play. A couple more notable guys. Josh Jacobs was listed as questionable with an illness. I assume he was infectious because he did not travel with the team to Tennessee for this week's game, so that is not looking likely that he'll play, but who knows, maybe they shipped him express in some other form. Then Hayden Hurst popped up with a groin injury today, which was Friday when I originally filmed this without any sound. That's never a good thing, a late injury report ad on a Friday. Then James Conner is a game-time decision. Julio Jones is a game-time decision. Justin Herbert is a game-time decision. My voice is not going to make it this morning. Dalton Schultz out, Harrison Butker out, Hunter Renfrow out. I think that was a bit more of a surprise than anything. Sammy Watkins out, Rondale Moore out, Chris Godwin out. Kadarius Toney did not participate in a walkthrough on Friday, even though he did participate in a real practice, a more physically demanding practice on Thursday, so that's probably not a good sign for him. Taysom Hill did not practice. I believe he's questionable. And then Rashad Bateman did not practice? Question mark? He was, I believe, if I recall correctly, from when I wrote this down, it was from a report that he was not participating in the open portion to the media, but I did not see anything else in regards to, him likely not playing, so I think he's more than likely to play than not. Let's get to our Steel Stock Scraps. As I said, this is basically a start 'em, sit 'em. And for the tight ends, I did go with the pre-George Kittle rankings as the ECR or expert consensus rankings from Fantasy Pros. Was very clearly did not have most of people's rankings updated yet to reflect the fact that George Kittle was active. He will be my 5th ranked this week for the tight end position, and that will move some of these back. By and large, when choosing my steals and scraps, what I'm looking for is, for the steals, I'm looking for guys who I have ranked as must starts in the top 12, top 24, depending on the position, who are not likely ranked the same by the expert consensus rankings. They're outside of that number of players. Like so, the opposite for the scraps are going to be guys that I have outside of the must-start territory or the top X players, but the ECR has them within there. That's the general idea of what I'm looking for. So let's start out with my 2 steals for this week. Logan Thomas, I have ranked 11th. The ECR has him at 12, which basically means I have him 12, and the ECR should probably end up having him at 13. Going against Philadelphia, I like this Washington offense this week. I expect more of what we have seen in the previous 2 weeks from them in what I expect to be a higher scoring game. Then Evan Ingram, I have ranked at 12 or will be just outside at 13, and the ECR is 14 or will be 15, going up against the Chargers. They're not the easiest matchup for receivers, specifically slot receiver, which I will get to at the end of this video. But I have Evan Ingram right on the borderline of being as a starter, where he'll be a little bit further back by ECR. I think he's a go in a good matchup where he should get a good amount of targets there. Then for the stock guys, once again, these are just me reminding you a lot of the time to stick with the plan, play the best guys, and TJ Hockenson and Kyle Pitts are still essentially must starts. That said, it is very possible that you could own either of those two and also be the proud owner of a Gerald Everett and a Tyler Higbee. I'm recommending, or I'm giving you the okay, if you would prefer to play one of these two over Hockenson or Pitts, go right ahead, because I do have them ranked higher. However, for Gerald Everett, I did not go over Justin Herbert very well, but he is looking less likely to play than not, according to some source at the very least. And so Gerald Everett, if that were to be the case, obviously it falls back for me. I don't know exactly how far, but I would say just for comfort reasons, outside of maybe around 14 or so to 15 with George Kittle coming back. And for these scraps at the tight end position, I have Dawson Knox ranked at 13/14. And the ECR in him is 11, probably will be 12, so just as a borderline must start. Going up against Miami this week, so there is definitely some upside there. I would call him a ceiling play over Ingram and Ertz, who I do have as starters higher than him. But if you really need that ceiling this week, go right ahead and go for Dawson Knox over either of those two, but not Logan Thomas. I would still go with Logan Thomas over Dawson Knox. The ceiling is still there with a bit of a safer floor for Logan. And Hayden Hurst, I have in at 15/16, and the ECR is 13/14 on him. The matchup temperature gauge in my projections, which is a measure of, it's a matchup, a cold or hot matchup. It is cold for Hayden Hurst, and he also popped up on the injury report as we went through at the top on Friday. Not always a good thing. I am starting Conklin over Hayden Hurst. Now, on to the quarterbacks. The steals that I have are Carson Wentz and Jared Goff. I have Carson Wentz ranked 8th. The ECR on him is a 14, going up against Philadelphia. Do I love these steal names? No, heck no. They're hard to trust based on their name, especially in recent history for like a Jared Goff, who used to be known more when he had more talent around him prior to last season as someone who was a fantasy starter but would have some absolute duds some weeks. Well, we may be back into that territory with Jared Goff, who I have ranked 9th. The ECR is 16 on him, going up against Minnesota. I think the rankers are having a little bit of a tough time going with their projections, going with the right calls. Carson Wentz and Jared Goff are essentially must starts this week in matchups that should be favorable to some high scoring games. You don't want to miss out on those ceilings. I expect those two to have similar outcomes to the last 2 weeks for both of them this season, and then maybe we'll get some matchups where we can start getting them back out of this territory and get some more names that we trust in here. But some of those names that we typically trust aren't very reliable right now either. Moving on to the stocks, Justin Herbert, I have ranked 5th. Basic idea here for Justin Herbert. If he is starting, then you are playing him. You're trusting him going up against Jacksonville this week. Then Kirk Cousins is ranked 11th by me, and the ECR has him at 8. Doesn't matter. What I'm saying is you're playing Kirk Cousins, you're trusting him. We're buying Kirk Cousins week 1 compared to last week. On to these scraps. We have Derek Carr ranked at 15. The ECR on him is 10, putting him in that starting territory. Going up against Tennessee this week. I'm not quite buying it for Derek Carr. This is in part due to some of those names popping up higher than him. But for me, is really the ceiling in this game. Going up against Tennessee, embarrassed last week. Of course, Las Vegas is also kind of fighting for probably feels like their season at this point. Both teams having some rough starts. So I just don't expect this to be a very pretty game. I don't expect that ceiling to really be there this week. Derek Carr is a safe play, but there are better options. Then Russell Wilson, I have ranked at 19. ECR on him is an 11. The projections were even worse than that for 19, compared to where I have him ranked. Going up against San Francisco this week, even if Russell Wilson had played much better, even if those Broncos offense looked a lot better in the first 2 weeks, I guarantee you I still would not have Russell Wilson as high as 11. That just feels too high for this matchup, and I think there's a lot of people that are maybe trying to get ahead of that offense clicking. I don't know exactly what's going on there. Just doesn't seem... Well, I do know. Some of the names that we have to try to trust this week are Carson Wentz and Jared Goff, and that feels terrible. Now on to the steals, stock, and scraps for the running backs. I have Michael Carter and J.D. McKissic in here as steals. I will say, I'm more confident in my J.D. McKissic call here, but I do have Michael Carter ranked 21st. The ECR on him is 32nd, going up against Cincinnati. So there should be a lot of... It's a high ceiling, low floor kind of play for Michael Carter, in my opinion, this week. Things could go sideways with that call. Just based on the usage so far, the projections have him pretty high. I believe I have moved him back a little bit, even compared to my projections. Then J.D. McKissic, another Washington guy, I have ranked a 33rd. The ECR on him is a 43, going up against Philadelphia. He's definitely a sleeper pick for me this week. If you were thinking of playing him over somebody, I'm probably giving you the green light on that. Just like last week, the same reasons that I liked J.D. McKissic last week, going up against Philadelphia is a high-scoring matchup. There shouldn't be a lot of running. Like, for instance, Antonio Gibson, I have a little bit of a bust tag on him this week, expecting this game to look a lot like last week's did for Washington, which means probably more of a J.D. McKissic week. On to the stocks. Derrick Henry and Alvin Kamara, you're starting them. Easier said with... Alvin missed a week, so maybe you're over the pain of week 1 from him. But either way, these are must-start guys. We need a little more poor return on that investment before we're throwing them into the trash. Then into the scraps, we have Ezekiel Elliott ranked 27th, but the ECR on him is 22nd, putting him into must-start territory as an RB2. I'm not buying that. I don't have the opponent up here. Oops. Feel free to sit Ezekiel Elliott this week if you have somebody you would like to start over him in that flex territory. And a couple of quick bonus running back options here. James Robinson and Travis Etienne. This is similar to both last week, my call for Travis Etienne and liking him, thinking that Indianapolis, at least in the early parts of the week, thinking that Indianapolis would put them into a negative game script, which I think is going to be a much more Travis Etienne type of game, just like J.D. McKissic and Antonio Gibson. So this is a week where I would like Travis Etienne, a little bit of a bust tag on James Robinson for that reason, and he's probably overproduced a little bit. At least last week he did. But, the thing about overproduction is it still happened. And so you can't discount it too much. Then for the DFS option that I'm going to throw out there for you is Jamal Williams. I don't know exactly what the price on him is, but I have him ranked 37th in my rankings, and he is a high upside play. Expect potential week 1 outcome from him because there should be some touchdown opportunities, and he has gotten a lot of that work when they get into the red zone right near the goal line. High upside the play there in Jamal Williams. Now on to the wide receivers for the steals, stock, and scraps. I have Jahan Dotson, Garrett Wilson here as steals. Jahan Dotson, I have ranked at 15th, and the ECR on him is 41, going up against Philadelphia. I know it's not the prettiest cornerback matchup, but I don't think that's going to matter in this week. And there is a certain wide receiver on the opposite side of him who should at least take the attention from the tougher cornerback matchup of that pairing. I think this ECR 41's just ridiculously low. I'm expecting Jahan Dotson to be a must-start this week. Then Garrett Wilson, just on the cusp there of must-start territory, but he was one of the larger, I guess the first and largest slide right near that flex start territory. So Garrett Wilson, I have ranked 25th. The ECR in him is 34th. I'm saying it's going to be a good week. Cincinnati, their opponent, is pretty good against the pass so far this season, but guess where they let up a lot of the fantasy points, a lot of the production too? Out of the 3 wide receivers, you have your left, your right. Did I do that right? So you have your left and your right receiver, and then you've got your slot receiver. That's the one producing against Cincinnati. That's where Garrett Wilson lines up. And, maybe not 2 touchdowns, but expecting some sort of similar usage as last week for Garrett Wilson, and expecting a lot of throws in that game by the Jets. So another high upside play that I'm giving the green light to onto these stock options. Gabriel Davis, I have ranked at 10th. ECR is at 19 on him, going up against Miami. So I just wanted to point out the ECR is putting him at a into the borderline of a back end wide receiver 2/flex play. He's a definite start. Basically, this ECR's Gabriel Davis has not been a guarantee to play this week, although he said he's 100%. So I do assume that some rankers are hedging their bet on Gabe Davis a little bit due to some of that injury, but going up against Miami this week, man, you don't want to miss out on that. He's a must start. Then Marquise Brown, also a must start, but this is one where you kind of want to miss out on. Going up against the Rams and guys above him that I have ranked above him but are below him according to the ECR's rankings are Amari Cooper, which it's too late for that one. Then Drake London, Gabe Davis, Michael Thomas, giving you the okay to play all of them if you were to be in a decision between Marquise Brown and one of them, as far as some of those names that the ECR wouldn't tell you to start over Marquise Brown. You get it. Moving on to these scraps, I have DJ Moore and CeeDee Lamb here. DJ Moore, first of all, let me make this clear. Scraps, it sounds harsh, but it's really not that harsh. It's just guys who are, missing out on my must-start territory, who are in the must-start territory for the ECR. And that's exactly what happened to DJ Moore. I have him just outside at 26, and the ECR in him is 21. Going up against New Orleans this week. Not a super high upside sounding game in my opinion. If you have someone that you would like to start over DJ Moore in that back end starting high end flex territory right around him, I'm giving you the green light more so than the expert consensus rankings are. Then CeeDee Lamb, I have ranked at 29th. The ECR in him is 20, so a little more separation even than the DJ Moore separation. Playing up against the New York Giants. Now that looks really pretty when you look at it. You say, oh, the New York Giants, they suck. They're not a plus matchup so far this year against the wide receivers. So what I would say about CeeDee Lamb is that he is a ceiling flex option. If you feel that you need a ceiling going into this week, maybe you played up against who had a really big David Njoku. Maybe you played up against David Njoku. You don't really have a strong tight end anyways, and now you're feeling behind in your matchup. Well, now I'm saying, hey, go right ahead, and there are going to be some guys in my rankings that I would play CeeDee Lamb over just because you need that ceiling shot. Because of usage there, and not because of production, that's what gets CeeDee Lamb into that ceiling territory. A bonus wide receiver statement here. Robbie Anderson is a good DFS play. He had the 8th highest ceiling via my projections, so there's a lot of upside there, but I did not rank him like that because I am expecting eventually here for the tides to shift into DJ Moore's favor, but I'm still hedging that a little bit because Baker has liked Anderson quite a bit. So don't forget, you can come and ask me any start-sit questions specifically between players about an hour ahead of kickoff. I will go live on this channel, and you can ask your questions. You could also drop them in the comments if you wish, but less than likely, especially on Sunday morning, that I will get to them then. And I just want to let you know one crazy thing that I'm about to be doing, and this involves Christian Kirk. And let's just lay out the groundwork. Going up against the Los Angeles Chargers, a slot corner. This is the reason that I was not high up on, hopefully my memory is serving me correctly, Juju Smith, right, last week? Going up against Bryce Callahan, who has only allowed more than 50 yards in one game that he has played at the slot since Week 8 of 2020, which I went back and I looked, that has been 23 games that he has not allowed. I assume Week 8 of 2020 was the game that he actually let up 50-plus yards. Usually that's when you pick up a very specific time frame. Usually that means that is included in the statistic. So who knows, before that he might have let up 50 yards in every game of his career for I think it was 3 or 4 years prior to that. But what this means is, first of all, I'm crazy, and I'm probably going to be playing DK Metcalf over Christian Kirk because I'm in a situation where I just need that boom game, and I don't think that that's in Christian Kirk's. If he had a better quarterback than Trevor Lawrence, if we could trust Trevor Lawrence, maybe Trevor Lawrence is a better quarterback than he's been so far in his career, and this is the week where everything turns around. But I can't bet on that. I'm going to bet on Geno Smith against the Falcons. So I'm going to bet on the better matchup. I guess maybe the better wide receiver talent, even in DK Metcalf this week. It's scary, not feeling good about it. But how is this actionable for you, you ask? Well, if you wish, feel free to come and ask me at the start sit if I am playing Christian Kirk or not. Because if I am playing Christian Kirk, then expect Bryce Callahan's streak of not letting up more than 50 yards to continue. If I am sitting him, you should play Christian Kirk. All right, that's it. I love you. Thank you very much. This video is not as good as the one that I recorded last night, but what can you do? Roll with the punches. Good luck today, I assume, for most of you, and hope to see you. Bye-bye.